Hey, welcome to another episode of Culture Cast. I really enjoy these programs. Dustin Homan, who's the 4-H extension educator at the Purdue University, is in contact with a lot of different unique individuals, and they're going to be talking about their travels, specifically with Lauren Hamer, who went to a recent trip to Italy. So stay tuned. Hi, Dustin. It's good having you back for 2020 for a whole series of different culture casts. I really enjoy your programs.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I appreciate you having me on. As most of our viewers know, my family moved to Indiana last year, and I've transitioned into a new position, still within the Big Ten, not at Ohio State anymore, but I'm just really honored that you've asked me to continue with these, and I just love hearing the stories of the guests that we bring on. So happy 2020 to you and the team, and let's start this year off with a bang. And our guest that you mentioned earlier is Lauren Hamer. And Lauren's an undergraduate student in the College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences at The Ohio State University, majoring in animal science. Lauren, welcome to Culture Cast, and we thank you for being here today. Let's start off by you telling the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. I'm really glad you guys invited me to be here today, too. So like they said, I'm Lauren Hamer. I'm actually from Northern Ohio. I grew up on a small farm outside of Bellevue, and now I am a senior undergraduate student at Ohio State majoring in animal sciences. And this past December, I got to go to Italy for just over a week studying human and animal interactions.
And Lauren, were you involved in 4-H or FFA?
Both, actually. 4-H for about 13 years and then FFA all through high school.
Wonderful. Our culture cast initially started as me interviewing specifically 4-H alums who had gone on some different 4-H related trips, and we've since expanded to that. But I still like to be able to bring these back anytime I find connections to those who have 4-H roots. So I'm really glad to hear that. So Lauren, let's dig into this. You've got some amazing photos. Sounds like a trip of a lifetime. I mean, this is a place that people go to on vacation, and you got to go through a university-sponsored education abroad trip. So, Sarah, if you'll pull up the first photo of the group. Lauren, tell us a little. Oh, excuse me. It's been so long, Patrick. I'm rusty. I forgot we always start with the map. So, for our viewers, many of you could probably identify Italy on the map, but just as a reminder, here it is in red, often referred to as the boot of Europe. And as we always do, the next picture shows Italy's flag, which is very timely. 2020 is an Olympic year, so hopefully by viewing this, you'll be able to point out the flag if you're watching the Olympics in Tokyo this summer. Okay, Lauren, back to you. So tell us a little bit about the trip. What prompted the trip? What was the topic of the trip?
Yeah, so the program itself is called Human-Animal Interactions. So this is actually my second one. I went on the same type of program to Ireland last year. So what we do is we evaluate all kinds of different interactions with animals. It could be anything from like companionship to food or even transportation or anything that we might see. And we kind of did different things associated with that throughout the program, as well as some different touristy things. That photo there is all of us students who went on the program. We're overlooking Florence right there in that photo.
Can I ask a quick question? With all the different travels, Ohio State University, as well as other universities that have extension focus in 4-H, have these different trips. Were you aware when you started with Ohio State University the opportunities to go on these trips?
So I knew a little bit about it. And that's one of the reasons I chose Ohio State, is because I always knew that I wanted to go abroad. Before coming here, I had never even left the country. That was always a goal of mine. So that's why I originally chose to go to a bigger school. But when I got here, I didn't realize how much opportunities I had. And this is actually my third program. I started my freshman year going to Nicaragua. Then I went to Ireland last year, and then Italy this year.
You're a perfect example of when people say you catch the travel bug.
Oh, yeah. After my first one, I was like, I'm doing it all the time now.
Although you went to completely different climates for those.
Yeah, definitely.
But Lauren, you mentioned that you went to Ireland on a similar focused program, and we're going to get into some of the photos specific to Italy. But what were some of the commonalities that you saw between the human-animal interactions in Ireland as you saw in Italy?
Yeah, so some of it, especially towards the food animal side, they're both like overseen by the European Union. So a lot of like their welfare stuff was really similar. They were still kind of different though. I mean, it was kind of for me, I've been doing it like, okay, this is how the US is, this is how Ireland is, this is how Italy is, and kind of making those connections throughout. And I guess for the most part, they're really similar. It gets down into the details where you start to see the differences.
So let's get into some of these photos, and you can talk a little bit about some of these differences as we're getting into this and some of the things that you saw. And I think our viewers are going to see some similarities between American agriculture, but also some differences as well. So Lauren, walk us through what we see here.
Yes, so that photo there was taken at about 200 cow Frisian dairy in the Parma region. So it was really neat. We had a translator there. The farmer himself couldn't speak English, but we had a translator from the veterinary science department at the university nearby. And it was really neat to kind of hear like his statistics and stuff. They were very similar to the averages you would see here in the dairy industry in the US. So that was really cool to like see how he ran his farm versus like how we do ours. But what's really cool about his specific dairy is in the Parma region, they have a specific bacteria in their soil that gets in their forage when they grow it, and then the cows eat it, and it's used to make the actual Parmesan cheese. So it's called Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, and they are so specific about it. Later on, like you'll see the pictures, and it's a really unique industry and definitely profitable for the farmers in that area.
So I didn't realize the name Parmesan is specific to a region in Italy.
Yes, it's for the Parma. I didn't either before going on this program. It's specific to the Parma region. So like apparently the Parmesan cheese we have here that you could just buy at the store in the US is not real Parmesan.
Yeah. I feel like I've been duped.
Right?
Yeah. So
I've been lied to my whole life now.
You mentioned that these were a Frisian breed. Is that what you had said? And so because they look almost like Holsteins, black and white, like I would see here in the US. What were some of the differences in the breeds?
We didn't really get into that. I think when it comes down to it, they're pretty much the same thing. I think it's kind of another way to say it. I'm not totally sure about that, but yeah, I think it's pretty much the same thing.
Because you had mentioned that the milk production was about the same.
Yeah, like.
Okay. And we have a lot of Holstein dairy cows here, so interesting. All right, so we've seen the live animal photo. Let's move to the next photo, as Lauren was mentioning, and sort of some of that processing. So tell us about what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so that is the first day when they originally get the milk. From the morning milking from the night before, and they create that giant curd and they pick it up, and in that wheel is how it stays until it's sold. So how it's picked up there, they take it off and they age it in a water bath, and then eventually it gets put into a storage room where they age it for at least a year. And that, yeah, like that. And those wheels of cheese, the minimum price that they sell for is €500. So that's even a lot more in the US, and that's if they're labeled. So they have specific, I guess you could say, agents or whatever for this Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, which is what they call it. And after it's aged, they have it inspected, and they have to stamp it to approve it in order for it to be sold as that cheese. If it doesn't pass the inspection, then it can't be sold as that cheese, and it's just sent off to some normal market.
So back on that earlier photo, Lauren, does the cheese just kind of, clot and blob together at the top of this vat?
Yeah, they just kind of heat it up, and the curd starts to form, and the proteins denature and stuff like that, I think is what happens.
And do they cut it?
So they had this giant like oar kind of like for a canoe that they would like stir it around, and then they like pushed it together and like took the cheesecloth and just like hung it up.
And do they cut it then?
Nope, they don't cut it. It gets put into a mold because these molds that they put on it actually have like an identification on it. So it almost looks kind of like Braille. There's all these little dots inside it, and it's like an identification to that specific processor.
And you were talking about the inspection process. Did they talk to you at all about how much of that cheese is ate locally versus exported internationally?
No, they did not. They didn't go into that. But I think a lot of it is kept local and they do export. They said if you go to like some specific like international grocery stores or like higher end grocery stores around here, you might be able to find it. But they mainly eat that in Italy. So like, I think it's kept mostly in the area, but it is exported as well to like higher end markets.
My wife and I had spaghetti last night, and we used the crumble Parmesan, the Kraft stuff, that's in the big green container.
Yeah.
I really feel duped now that who knows what kind of taste experience we could have had if we had some of this cheese. So not only did you see cheese, but you saw some other types of agricultural products while you were there as well. So let's go to the next photo, Sarah, and you can tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so that is the aging facility for prosciutto ham. So where we went, it was the processor and the farm were all there together. So we first went and saw the animals. So prosciutto ham is, again, something that's unique to Italy. They have a black pig. There's two different breeds. I can't remember what the breed names are, but the black pig is the only kind of pig that can make the prosciutto ham. They have a higher percent of fat, and that's how that happens. Their production isn't as efficient as like what we would see here in the US, but it's really unique and they get a higher price for that because it's a unique product. So we got to see that, and then we went into their processing plant. It was really small. It was just like a little family business, but it was really neat because they took us down in there and they showed us how all like their charcuterie meats and such are aged. So that is an image of the prosciutto ham right there that is unique to Italy.
Did they tell you how long the ham has to hang here before it's ready to be cut?
Yes. I can't remember specifically because there were so many different ones that day with so many different age lengths. I want to say it's at least a few months, if not longer.
So a long process.
It's quite a while, yeah.
Okay.
Very long process. They have a long time to wait for that.
And do they, smoke anything in this room or add any kind of, infusions to flavor the meat?
Not really. A lot of it was just like drying it out with salt for a preservative and kind of just letting it hang. I mean, there might have been. It was in like a wooden cellar, but as far as I know, I don't think so.
So we've got our cheese, we've got our meat. The last thing that's meeting from our charcuterie board and experience is the wine, which we got to see. So tell us about that.
Yes, we got to go see a winery in Tuscany. It was like, I think like 30 minutes outside of Florence. That's a picture of like the cellar there where they were storing some of it and aging some of it. It was less of a tour and more of a tasting we had to do, so we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time there, but I was okay with that. But they're really known for their dry reds. That's what they do a lot with. So did this place grow their own grapes for the wine? Yes, I didn't put a picture of that in there, but like as we drove in, like the vineyard was surrounding.
Just a quick question on the barrels that they use. I know in the United States we have a lot of oak barrels. In Southern Ohio they use oak. Did they get into anything with the kind of wood that they use for the barrels that makes it a unique taste?
I think they mentioned what kind of wood it is. I'm going to be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. But they did discuss that a little bit. And it was a familiar one. It might have been oak, but I can't remember.
So, I mean, some incredible experiences to be able to see how different culture, right, creates some products that have similarities and differences to products that we eat here in the U.S. So we appreciate you sharing those photos. We also like to do on our segments feature a little bit of the architecture and the local people and places that you got to visit there as well. So let's dig into some of these photos and the time that we have together. Tell us about this fountain.
Yes, so that is the infamous Fyffe fountain in the middle of Rome. I do not know the specific story behind it, but it is like one of the largest ones, and the background was like an entire wall rather than just like in the middle of the piazza, which is what they call a square. So I think that's probably one of the biggest tourist attractions when you're in Italy.
Is this a like flip a coin into kind of fountain?
Yes, you flip a coin in. And you have to be really careful around there, though, because it's also one of the biggest locations for pickpocketers. So if you ever travel to Italy, that's your forewarning.
Good to know. Now, you're wearing a coat in this picture, so I'm interested. You were there over Christmas time. What was the weather like when you were there?
Yeah, so in northern Italy, we would see late 30s, more like 40s, maybe a little bit into the 50s. By the time we got down to Rome, it was more like 50s, 60s.
Okay, so pretty moderate.
Mild. Yeah, when we were there, it was like almost in the negatives back here, so it was nice.
So in comparison, yeah, like you said, it was a good place to be in December. All right, so we have the fountain. Let's get to a few more of these architecture photos. So tell us about this. People may recognize some of this from the news.
Yes, so that is Venice. That right there is in the St. Marco Square. So it's one of the lowest points on the island too. So Venice is actually over 100 islands put together by little bridges, by little walking bridges. There's no cars, there's no roads, everything's sidewalk, and they travel by boat. Like even their emergency, like firefighters, police, all that, they have a boat. They don't have an ambulance. So it was pretty unique to see that when we were going around. But in that photo, there's flooding. So you probably saw in the news a couple months ago, there was major flooding in Venice. It doesn't always look like that now. That was at high tide. So at 1 p.m., high tide came in. So like the water rose and it came into the city. There were all kinds of drains and everything just kind of flooded. So they were selling boots, and they have, in that photo, we were walking on like a platform, and they had platforms set up so that the people could get out of the water and walk around. And then it would recede and happen like every 12 hours.
So obviously it sounds like they're prepared for this, but did you get the sense that with the extra flooding, they were prepared for that, to handle that as well?
Yeah, we were there kind of in the aftermath, and you could see a little bit that they were trying to like manage it. Like a couple of store owners were standing there with a hose spraying the water outside because they also don't have a sewage system. Everything gets dumped into the water, so it's not like the cleanest. But so they kind of struggled with that, trying to keep everything clean. But they're so used to it that it didn't really faze them, even after having such a traumatic experience with it. They're all kind of used to it. We did a gondola ride while we were there, and our, I don't know if you call him a driver or not, whatever. He was telling us that he actually lives on like the first floor of his apartment, and most people like are smart enough to live on the second floor, but he's like, I guess I'm the dumb one, and I lived on the first floor, and he had several feet of water in his apartment when that flooded.
Yeah. There's an example of learning by doing. Now, you mentioned that the emergency personnel that traveled around the city by boat. Just curious, like, did they have like an Uber Eats or a food delivery service that you saw that did that as well?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. We did see a boatload of Amazon Prime boxes, but we did not see any food delivery. But that's not to say it wasn't there. I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Fascinating. All right. So going from that to another iconic symbol in Rome, tell us about this.
Yes, so that is an image of the inside of the Colosseum in Rome. So the middle part, which is, they're constructing it right now because they kind of tore out like what would be the floor, and they're showing like the underneath levels, because a lot of times that's where they would like keep the animals and the gladiators for like storage, I guess you could say. And they're working on fixing that up to make it more accessible for tourists. So we didn't get to go down in there, but we saw that. That's kind of a central shot there. Apparently the Colosseum is one of the 7 wonders of the world. We didn't realize that until after we had left, but that was kind of cool.
Well, at least you have a photo to document it. Now, did you have free time during this trip to be able to visit some other sites like this?
Yeah, so in different cities, sometimes you'll get an hour here or there, or like half of a day. But when we were in Rome, they gave us a whole day because there's so many things to see. The Colosseum was part of a group tour. So the first whole day we were there, we did that as a group tour. We also did the Roman Forum, and then we did a cat sanctuary, our kind of, I guess it wasn't really a sanctuary, but they actually like fix cats within the city to pull down cats, stray cat populations. But other than that, we had pretty much free time in Rome.
So it sounds like you saw, full spectrum of human-animal interactions then, right? From dairy cows and pigs all the way to cats?
Yeah, it was really cool. We got to see so many different things.
And the point you made about the free time, I think that's really important to mention as part of these education abroad trips, that while a lot of it is structured and, you're under the umbrella and protection of the university, you still have some free choice in this to decide to explore and get out and hang out with friends and meet new people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something that you're constantly chaperoned. Like, they let you go and do your own thing, which I thought was really important, because then I got to experience Italy a little more like through my eyes. And you obviously travel with a buddy, be safe, but it was really cool because we got to have that structured part where they give us more access to things because we're students, but then we also get that chance to go off and pick out what we really want to see.
So I would be remiss if we do not spend time talking about the food. This is Patrick and I's favorite segment of each of these culture casts. So let's dig into some of these food photos. We make Italian here, but I have a feeling it probably doesn't compare. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so there was so much food. We had so many different meals. The one in that photo was called tortelli. That is like a specific dish to the Parma regions, like I was talking about earlier with the Parmesan cheese. So that is filled with ricotta cheese, which is kind of like a byproduct cheese. And then it's covered in butter, since dairy is such a big deal. And then it's covered in the Parmesan cheese as well. So it's all the dairy, but it's like the Parma region's like specific dish is the tortelli.
It's a bad place to go if you have a dairy intolerance as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not a good place. All right, let's go to our next dish. What do we see here?
Yes, that is the 4-cheese gnocchi. So that is another kind of unique Italian dish. I believe I got that in Rome. Yes.
And what is gnocchi made from?
It's like a potato pasta. So it's little tiny like potato noodles.
Yeah, something I did not know. I just had assumed that it was a starch or wheat-based food. So, all right, next one. Now let's go. There's a gelato photo I want to touch on quickly. Make sure we have time for. Yeah. So I'm sure people here have heard about gelato, but tell us about your experience.
Yes, that's not the best photo, but I wanted to include gelato in this because it's so important. I think I had it maybe 8 times the whole time I was there. But yeah, it was very, very good. It's like a thick ice cream, very creamy, but it's unique to them and very, very tasty. Lots of flavors. There was one place we went, there was like 150. It was really cool.
Do you know what makes it different than ice cream or frozen yogurt?
I'm not really sure. I'm going to guess it's the way they make it. It's definitely an ice cream and not a frozen yogurt. They definitely leave like the fat content in there, but I'm not sure how they make it. We never really got to talk about that.
So we saw some noodles, gnocchi, gelato. When you sat down for a typical meal, was there always a certain side or beverage?
Always bread.
Bread. Okay.
Yes, always bread. But it wasn't like they brought out butter. It was usually just bread was there.
Interesting.
Yeah, because like here we think we always have butter that comes out with like our rolls and such, but it wasn't a thing there. A lot of times we would take like the olive oil and kind of do our own thing, but a lot of times they would just hand us bread, and it would sometimes be like a mixture of all different kinds of breads. So
a quick question. In America, we think Italian, we think pizza. Curiosity, did you enjoy their kind of pizza, or did you have a chance to look at how they make their pizza?
I didn't get to see how they made it, but I got to eat it a couple times. I should have included a picture of that in here too. I think I had one maybe. But yeah, it was very good. Very good.
Is it similar to the American versions of pizza?
The first place we went to, I would say yes. The second place, I ordered why can't I think of the name of it? margarita pizza. And like here in the US, it's usually just like mozzarella cheese, like chunks of tomato and like pesto sauce and such. There, it's just basically a cheese pizza. Like it's the tomato paste with cheese on it.
What was the mix of getting food from restaurants, like sit-down restaurants versus walk-up versus street vendors? Did you see a mix of that?
Oh yeah, there was all kinds of different things. So since we were there during Christmas time, there were little Christmas markets up everywhere. So a lot of the bridges, they'd have little Christmas markets up. Some of them just had like dried sausage hanging there. Some of them had different foods hanging there. Some of them were like selling hats and such. Like it was a whole different mix of things. But yeah, there were definitely walk-up places. There was some fast food. Like we went to McDonald's the one time. They still have that kind of stuff. And the gas stations were kind of cool too. They actually had more like you could sit down, but also kind of take away too.
Yeah.
Takeaway. Yeah, that's what they call. I forget. They have a different term for it there, rather than like dining out. Takeaway is.
To go, they kind of stare at you. It's takeaway. Yeah.
Takeaway. That's right. And what about the coffee? Did you have any coffee?
Yes. It was very good. It was so cool because, usually like in the US, when you go to a hotel in the morning, there's just like a coffee pot there and you do it yourself. No, they have an actual espresso machine where you can get a latte or a cappuccino or a mocha or anything. Yeah.
Dustin, it is interesting. People remember the different sights that they see if their stomach is full and if they've had good meals. And I guess, Lauren, that's why Dustin and I always look at the food is the fact that we remember the good sights, but we also remember bad food.
Oh, yeah. Food is very important in how you look at everything.
Well, especially when you're majoring in animal sciences, too. It's also for your own learning. Well, Lauren, as our time's winding down, I like to end each of these by asking tell our viewers, why should they visit Italy?
Yes, so I always want to tell people to travel. It's amazing. Italy was sorry. Working with a cold here. Italy was very unique in some of its food products, but most importantly, the architecture everywhere is absolutely beautiful and historical. Almost every city we went to had something that was basically should be in a museum just outside walking around, and it was amazing everywhere. I was just like, this is incredible. Ohio's so boring now. This is beautiful. So if you really want to constantly be amazed by architecture and culture and food, Italy's the place to go.
And did you feel safe when you were there?
Yeah, I felt pretty safe. There was maybe a couple times like at night when we were off on our own that was a little shady, but if you stay in like the high populated areas, you feel safe. And they had military up everywhere too, like protecting people from any kind of threats they've received too.
So, not much different than here in the U.S., right?
It's pretty much the exact same thing, yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, Lauren, thanks for sharing that. And as always, Patrick, Sarah, I thank you for this opportunity. Lauren, thank you for your time. You're the reason that this show, that people watch it, and what an incredible experience you had. And we appreciate you sharing your photos as well.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed being on.
And to all our CultureCast viewers, thanks for tuning in. We hope that you'll join us next time as we explore this great, big, and wonderful world that we live in. Until next time.